And in this one, we're going to talk about how to manage finances as a married couple. Everybody started out, they manage money by themselves. It's pretty easy, right? You know, this is my rent. This is on average what I spend. Here's what I make. Here's what my surplus is. Things get a little bit harder when you add in a significant other, when you add in their expenses and things that you don't know about in the background. You add in kids, etc. You do need some system. There's a lot of people who are going to tell you that the only system that works is everybody managing their finances together as a married couple. I slightly disagree. Do I think that is the best system? I do. Do I think it's the only system that can work for everybody? I don't. And so there's really three good systems to think about here. The first one is entirely combined. This is what everybody thinks of the traditional marriage. So, hey, we both work, we go to shared checking account as we pay bills, credit cards, our mortgage, etc. From shared checking account goes to shared savings accounts, to some individual investment accounts, maybe a shared taxable account, but we really operate together. Money comes in, we share our money. We share our expenses, we share our investments. The reason why most people find that this works best is because research says it does. In my experience, from most people I work with, it is the best system. It is the one that I see work the best. It's the one that I see people who have the best marriages do, but I don't think that that's because they do it this way. I think there's underlying things as a part of that marriage, right? Part of having a good marriage is being a team, thinking of things together, working on things together, and money is a really big part of that. What often happens is marriages that are struggling, marriages that aren't a team, marriages that don't work together, don't do it. So that's not that finance is the issue. A lot of times it's the core issue, something else in their marriage. This is the system that I found works the best. I typically combine this with reverse budgeting, right? Income comes in, we know our shared income, we know our shared expenses, we automate our shared savings and investments together. That's kind of the best way to do it. Again, I really do like this. This is what me and my spouse do. This is what I see works the best, especially for people who get married younger. Then the next one is half and half. Income comes in, we go to shared checking account. So maybe make this easy. We each make 10K. 10K comes into our shared checking account. We maybe automate some to our own separate checking accounts. From our own separate checking accounts, we can spend and do what we want, but we each kind of share in what we're doing into that shared checking account, right? We each are helping pay the bills. This does become a little bit harder as somebody has higher income and lower income. When that happens, sometimes you want to do proportionate. So you don't want to say like, hey, you make 20 and I make 5. Well, we each need to pay $2,000 for rent, when you're like, hey, I would rather live somewhere nicer, but because we're putting in the same dollar amount, they can't afford putting more, right? You might want to just say, hey, rent is 4K. I make 4X that, so I will do 4X of the contribution to rent than the other person does. I find that works pretty well. And so in this system, it really is figuring out what is shared and what is separate. The way that I found this to be best is the separate part is your own spending, right? Some people are like, hey, we value different things. We like to spend differently. What we're going to do is we're going to say we each get $2,000 a month. $2,000 goes here, $2,000 goes here. Spend however you want, spend on what you value. Nobody's watching over you. Everything is totally fine because we know we're saving and investing the right amount. We're putting the right amount into our shared checking account to cover our bills. That all works out really, really well. But the key here is working on goals together. Sometimes you'll find, right, that people in this system will be like, hey, this person has a bunch of debt over here. They make less income. Well, that stinks. They're going to have to go do it, right? When it would be better financially if the other person was also helping pay down that debt, right? You're going to get out of debt faster. You're going to get rid of those interest payments. And the same thing is thought about with investing, right? Maybe you make enough to max your 401k and your backdoor Roth or whatever, but your spouse doesn't, and they're only doing the match. So now you're funneling money somewhere else when we could be taking advantage of more of these tax advantage accounts if we were working as a team. Even if you do this system, I think it is really, really important to still work as a team, collectively accomplish goals, collectively save, do all of those things together. The one deviation from this that's actually simpler is all money comes into a checking account. Each person has, their joint cards and everything's the same, but we have separate credit cards. We each have one credit card for our wants. And we know at the end of the month, as long as we keep it below $2,000, we're spending it according to our income. And I find that system works really well, and it's even easier than the last one. We don't have to have so many accounts, etc. This is a system that I actually don't think is worse than the first one. I think sometimes it's okay to have your own things over here. One spouse might be like, it's so dumb that they spend on clothes. And then they're over here spending a ton of money on golf, right? Or, hey, I just don't understand why they spend so much at the gym, going to gym classes, when over here they spend on whatever their hobby is, right? Everybody spends on their hobbies. They don't really understand why everybody spends on the other hobbies. This separate system just kind of separates that and say, hey, we know what you can spend that, and then that's okay, right? And it doesn't really matter what they do. The third one is really all separate. Again, I don't really think this is a good goal because I haven't found very many people that do entirely separate that are working on the same things together, right? They're just separate over here. I do separate savings. I do separate investing. Maybe you pay down your debt. I'm not worried about it. Then they're Venmoing, and it just creates all these issues, and it actually creates quite a bit more work. The one caveat is I find this ends up working pretty well for people who get married way later in life. Let's say they're both very successful. They're getting married in their 40s. They're used to managing things on their own, right? And they're just both in a really good financial spot. And they're like, I'll go to dinner, I'll pay. I'll go to dinner, I'll pay. It all works out. You're just really built into a system. You've found that it works really, really well for you. So you're just going to stick with it. You don't want to go through all that pain. What I do end up finding is a lot of these people slowly do take those steps, right? They do start to work on things together. They do start to merge things together. But what I think is important is one, that you find the system that works for you. It's okay if you think it's different than the system that everybody else says works for them. What I find for a lot of people is they're entirely separate. We get married and we take a step towards being combined, right? Let's get that shared checking account in. Let's start managing things in a way that's somewhat combined, but let's have our own separate checking accounts, our own separate credit cards, right? But let's work on our goals together. Let's do that for a while. Let's get used to it, right? Maybe we're making the right steps financially. And now we know, hey, they've already built the right habits in. Let's take the next step. Now let's go to all together on checking, all goals together, and maybe we just have our separate credit card. And then we do that for a while and we say we can get rid of our separate checking or separate credit cards, and we can do a joint credit card and pay for those because we just took the right steps. It's okay to want to get to all combined, but not get there day one. Take the baby steps, get there over time, build the habits, build the communication. But I really do believe from day one, if you are married, you should be working on your goals together. Get aligned on those goals, help each other on those goals, help hold each other accountable, right? If one person makes way more, think about how do we utilize their tax advantage accounts and their benefits through work in the right way, but find the right system for you and then go from there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and go follow my page for more personal finance content. And as always, if you have any thoughts, please leave it in the comments below, and I promise to get back to each individual comment. See you next week.